Hello everyone, my name is Greg. I've been working at Odoo for quite some time and I had the chance to work on small implementation and then slowly switch to large implementation. Today, I'm responsible of the large implementation team and the project director. So today, I'm gonna present you the Odoo implementation methodology applied in larger companies. So the way I structured my presentation is to first focus a bit on the differences we have between the small and medium companies and the large companies. Then I will highlight few success factors we faced and we analyzed based on our experience for the last couple of years. So first, our differences between small companies and large companies. So the first topic is about going on site or not. For small companies, we push for the remote working. For large projects, we want to combine the advantages of going on site and the advantages of being remote. Being remote allows us to have access to the entire Odoo resources, including the R&D, the product owner, etc., and to be able to ask questions to colleagues and get some peer reviews. Being on site allows us to break the vendor and client relationship and to have informal session around the coffee machine, to go on for lunch, etc., to be able to discuss and really build some relationship with the client. It's always easier to meet people face to face to feel a bit more how the audience will react based on some decision we're going to take on the project. Another difference we have is how to follow the road for the project. For SMEs, what we saw is that they most of the time start from almost no ERP or no business system. For large projects, most of the time they already have an existing system. And here that's why they are focused on replicating what they have, because they have, I can say, they are reluctant to changes, to say that directly. They want to keep their day-to-day routine because they know how it's working. They know how to do this and this action on their day-to-day job. They fear a change because they don't know what they're going to have in the future when Odoo will be live. They might not know and might be not confident in the capacity of Odoo to deliver the same precision, the same result, the same efficiency. And so they don't really want to accept some workaround, and this is one of the bases of our methodology, to really focus on the standard of Odoo and to find some solution, even maybe not ideal, but as standard as possible. And the way to maybe convince people to focus on this replacement of their current system and not the replication of it is to observe the way they work, to try to optimize their work a bit and to look for improvement in every potential areas, even in the way they communicate between colleagues. So to do that, we need to discuss and see and sit also next to the different person, and that's why here we also combine the remote and on-site session, as said previously. Another approach is how to be able to push Odoo within the company. For small and medium companies, it's easier because the audience is smaller. For large companies, we have different departments to onboard. We have a lot of people potentially to onboard. And that's why here we initiate the change management process from day one, even from during the ROI analysis. What we do is to define a bit a strategy. We try to track every potential risk we might face if people are reluctant to adopt Odoo, if people are against the project, if maybe some department does not want to use Odoo because they are used to have, I can say, a retailer-made system, or they want to continue to work with paper. And to do that, we work closely with the client because at the end, the client will be responsible of the follow-up and read the deployment of the strategy to put some action on those risks we highlighted in the project phase and even during the ROI analysis phase. And to also switch and push Odoo within the company, we try to communicate a lot on the project. Not only limiting the communication between the project team, but we try to communicate with the key users, with end users, and we try to also identify maybe some reluctant people to turn them into Odoo ambassadors. Because if we change those persons who were quite negative about Odoo into people who promote the system, then the project is already a success, because it will be easily adopted, because people will be convinced that Odoo is the right solution for the company. Another topic is the project scope control. On SMEs, we define a general scope, and we'll see a bit how we're going to implement it through the entire project. For large company, we start from a list of requirements that we design in the ROI analysis. What's important in those kind of projects who will be conducted in the long term is to first at least validate the phase one content. Because what we saw is that the client has a tendency to mostly focus on the planning and the budget. He wants to know if he can pay for the project and if the delivery date will be as he wants. And so that's why here, the content, here it's important to really go into, I will not say every single detail, but at least have the idea of what we're going to deliver and to ensure that the priority did not change and that the business did not evolve in one or another direction. During this discussion, it's important to get some agreement to avoid surprise in the next coming months. As soon as we have decided what would be the content of the phase one, just write it somewhere to ensure that this would be the focus for the first go live. And if a change occurs, then track it. Track every single change you might have, not to protect yourself, but to be able to give some relevant information to the clients in terms of budget, in terms of planning, in terms of maybe some delivery expectation, because you might expect something, and then due to those all those changes, we will deliver something else. Having a good history and good tracking would help you to have everyone aligned and sharing the same vision on the project. Step-by-step or big bang approach. Here, it's not really a difference. It's maybe one common factor we have is to really phase the project. We try to start small and then expand in the next phases. And that's why here we really put the focus on the must-have requirement identified during the ROI analysis. We try to push every nice-to-have or elements that we can work without them for later phase. And that's how the reason why we push for a phased approach and not a big bang approach, because it will be easier to manage the entire process and mitigate a bit the risk about the entire project. So that was a bit summary of the differences we faced. And now let's switch to success factors. So read the key elements we have in the implementation to make really sure that the project will be a success. So the first is to start the project correctly. So to have a good project initiation, to not leave, I can say, any gray areas from day one. So to do that, what we really want to put the focus on is to validate the project scope, or at least the phase one, because we know that the project will evolve. So no need to validate every single phases, but at least know what we're going to deliver in phase one, phase two, and all the other phases. And this should be based on the ROI result if you have done one. It's also important to be aligned on the project methodology, on the way we're going to collaborate on the project, on the way we're going to deliver the project. And this goes through the way to design the different tasks, how we're going to specify the developments, how we're going to deliver them, who is going to test, and when we're going to meet, and when we're going to discuss all together. And the last point is also to review the planning, to ensure that our capacity to deliver is aligned with the date they want to be live, and also to ensure that people will be available when needed. Otherwise, we're going to have, I can say, some issues, or we'll have to readapt the planning again and again, and it's not always a good signal to have to review that on a regular basis. But of course, nothing is fixed. Everything can move and can be adapted along the project. But it's always good to have, I can say, one first agreement to start the project. Another success factor is to have the right single point of contact, so the right SPOC, because he will drive the entire implementation on the client side. Of course, we're going to be there to help him to do his job, but it's important to find the right person or the right people to do that and to help to promote the project internally on the client side. So the key factor for the right SPOC is to find, I can say, an Odoo ambassadors. He must be convinced that Odoo is the solution for the company. If he does not believe that Odoo is the right solution, then it's going to be nearly impossible to convince the entire company that Odoo would be good when live. He must be a decision maker. We don't want to spend time to ask questions to tons of people. We want to be able to decide fast. It does not mean that we will not discuss with the other department, but sometimes it's important to decide which direction to take. And if we want to focus on our capacity to deliver fast, and it's important to find the right person who will be able to make decisions when needed. And of course, to do that, he must be knowledgeable. He must know how the company is working, what would be the next challenges for the company, how they want to work tomorrow, and how different processes are integrated all together to ensure that the solution we're going to deliver would be compatible in phase one with the next phases. He must be, of course, available. If he's not available, then we lose a bit our capacity to deliver fast because he will be switched to, I guess, to a bottleneck in the Odoo implementation. So what we ask is to have the same availability than what we offer for the client. And the last topic, he must be legitimate. When he decides something, people must follow what he's saying, and not to be all the time challenges or having people who constantly argue or are not convinced that this person is the right person to do the job. It's not an easy task, but that's why here it's important to really identify this person from day one. We must be transparent. We should swing nothing under the rug, because here we share one common objective, which is the delivery of this project within the planning and the budget. And to do that, we must share really the same vision in terms of project scope, of timing, of quality, and all the elements we really must share, I can say, the same vision on the project and be able to focus really on the right challenges and the right priority. We must share all the tools together. It means it goes from the project tools, where you will list all the requirements, all the needs, the development needs, standard needs, configuration, etc., and all the feedback you might face, to really be able to share the vision and the progress of the project within one single platform. You must be able to communicate on those tools, to be able to really continue to adapt our vision on the project. We must also share failures. That's something pretty, I can say, easy to do. When something is not going well, people have tended to really share it quite quickly. But it's also important to really share also the successes when things are going well, to really boost the motivation of the teams. It's really important to be able to communicate on all those elements all the time. Don't leave both teams alone for a too long time. Really continue to communicate on an almost daily basis. Because at the end, as I said, we share one global objective, which is the project success. And don't forget that we are on the same boat. Another important topic to really continue to share this vision, to share this idea of being on the same boat, is to build this strong team spirit. We must really act like one. We don't want to have this vendor-client relationship. We want to have one global and one single team, which is the Odoo project team, to be able to deliver and to focus on this delivery on time and on budget. That's why here human aspect is really important. That's why we want to go sometimes on site with the client, to have face-to-face meeting, to have informal session, to celebrate the success as well, and to be able really to create some human emulation. Because without that, we're gonna stick to, I can say, this relationship client-vendor, and we gonna install ourselves in a way that the project will not be delivered in a good quality and not a good, at a good speed. The last topic is, I can say, some practical elements, is to set up some monitoring tool, because people must know the entire project, must know where the project is going and how the project is going. And to do that, we set up some monitoring tools. So to share this vision, and to do that, we define some KPIs in advance. And we also discuss with the client if he wants to add or maybe remove or to follow maybe some other indicators to reassure him that the project is going in one or another direction and if the project is going well. Those monitoring tools must be updated from time to time. And that's why here it's important to also define the synchronization time we're going to have together. Do we meet on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis? Do we have something updated in real time? So to be able to define when the number are going to be, I would say, correct or aligned with the current situation of the project. We should, of course, at the end, measure the project progress. It's not only, I can say, a percentage to say we are at 50% of the project. It's also to maybe compute some KPIs based on the quality, to see how many new features we have, how many bugs we have, and try to be able to track every factor that would have an impact on the project, to be able to anticipate as much as possible and to adapt the way we are working to really focus and be able to have something really smooth at the end. With all that, but we must share this information, not to only keep that to the project management team, but to share that with the entire project team and even outside the project team. We must really share this information to promote and see how the project is going and if the project is still on track and would be delivered in time. So with all that, we think that we can deliver, I can say, a proper implementation with everyone aligned on the content, on the timing, and on the budget of the project. And I would end my presentation here, and I would thank you for your attention, and let's now switch to the Q&A session. Depending on the volume of developments, sometimes the size of the company, like maybe more than 100 employees, and sometimes the names of the company. Some clients want to be helped and be monitored within the large project methodology.
All right. I see quite a lot of questions going on, so we probably won't have time to tackle them all. But you can talk to Greg after the talk.
Yeah, of course. We can meet at the booth, the methodology booth, just next to the auditorium.
I'll just take another one about the replacing instead of the duplicating. What is the main argument that you would push forward to the customer on this aspect?
Here, the main argument would be, I can say, the budget. If you want to push, I can say, all the process done maybe in SAP, Oracle, or any other software into Odoo, we might have to perform a lot of developments because every software has its own logic. And here the idea is really to start from the Odoo logic and see what should be adapted in terms of Odoo process, but also in the company process. So really the key argument will be clearly the budget, development time, but also the maintenance. because here the projects are there to last for several years, and if we tweak Odoo in every potential possible direction, then the project might be, I can say, at the end, a failure in terms of maintenance and upgrade capacity.
All right. Something about SPOC responsibilities and meetings with the customer. So what are the points you focus on when meeting with the SPOC for the first time? How you define the responsibilities? Is there a contract? Yeah, how do you tackle these issues?
So here, the first topic is to identify the right one. So here, that's the client's responsibility to find the right person. But then to share the responsibility, we sometimes work with a RACI matrix. So to be able to identify all the points we can have in the project, like steerco, project status, etc., to really be able to define who's going to do what in those meetings. So that's part of a discussion with the SPOC, is affinity with the IT, with the Odoo world, etc. So it's really based on the discussion where we clearly say that what we expect from the SPOC, so to be the Odoo ambassador, be able to make decision, and to share, like I said, the project success or the project progress internally.
All right. Maybe something about your experience, tips from companies coming from a bigger ERP like SAP or the like. How did that go? Do you have any feedback, any experience to share?
I have some. So here I faced several projects where they came from another ERP. So the main challenge was really to prove that Odoo can do the same job and do it in a better way. Because here, in the last couple of years, so Odoo was not, I can say, perceived as a clear competitor to main actors on the market like SAP. Now it's switching, but at the beginning when I started the MMC project, that was quite difficult. So we had to prove that Odoo can do the job and that we cannot only do demo, but that the project will be really a success. And here the first weeks or the first months maybe of the project was quite tough because we had to prove to the client that we are good candidates to perform those kind of projects.
All right. Another question on multi-company, for example, or an international project. How do you tackle them? Is it included in one project? Do you face them differently? Or is it just smaller projects that you would implement one by one?
Yeah. So again, it depends on the project context. If all the company perform the same job exactly, then onboarding all companies is more easier. But what we try to do is to phase the project in terms of project scope, but also in terms of areas and companies. So depending on the priority of the client and the size of the workforce we have to onboard on the project, we might decide to go for one company first, or at least maybe one area, or two companies in two different countries to experience this, and then move forwards and define this, I can say, onboarding strategy along the project.
All right, perfect. Question about monitoring the project. So what are the tools you're using? Do you use Odoo to follow up on the project? What kinds of KPIs do you monitor to follow up on the project?
Yeah, so the project tool, of course, we use Odoo, odoo.com. So we create, I could say, all the tasks, all our backlog inside Odoo, and then we build some reporting using Odoo spreadsheet and also Google spreadsheet if needed, or other sheet like that, to be able to share the element with the client. So in terms of KPI, what we track is the consumption of time based on our profile, so project director, developer, business analyst. We also monitor how many tasks and how far we are in the project delivery. So we really track, I could say, every kind of potential KPIs. So we have a bunch of 5 or 6 KPIs, but then we can add some other on top of that based on the client input and needs.
All right, perfect. Another question on data migration. How do you approach this issue? Because a comment here is that it's very often underestimated how you did tackle this.
Yeah, so here the upgrade, I could say, topic is tackled from day one, because that's why we have this mindset of focusing on the standard approach. As if we are too customized, then the upgrade process will take long and will be more complex than for a standard project. So here these discussions restart from day one to be able to keep this scope under control and anticipate the complexity we might face during this upgrade process.
All right. Yeah, again, on the project scope and phasing, question would be, what if the client insists on implementing the full scope rather than phasing it? What would be the discussion here?
Here we're going to challenge him to explain that going for, I can say, full delivery or big bang approach will be quite risky. To highlight that there is a huge change management, there is a huge training aspect, there is a huge outboarding process to handle. And if we split, and of course, if it's possible, if we can cut some process at some points to not having something not workable. So here we will try to challenge him, and if we feel and we are convinced that we cannot do it, of course we can decide to go for a big bang approach, but our preferences will go for a phased one to really have challenges, but smaller ones.
All right. And then let's say the customer validates the phasing together with you, but changes his mind or the process has changed during the project delivery. Would you tackle that?
If we feel that there is a lot of changes that we cannot really define or keep the same direction, we might decide to put a break on the delivery, to just take a step back and rethink what should be the right way to deliver the project. Because it will be pointless to continue to work on the backlog we have, since we are changing it like on a daily basis. So here we would rather raise the red flag and say, let's take a break, let's rethink and maybe rephase or rescope the project now, instead of like burning the budget for nothing.
All right, and then last question, and yeah, I invite everybody to talk to Greg afterwards. But that might be quite interesting to share with the audience if there's any template or tools or documentation that you can share that they can find in order to follow this large project methodology.
Yeah, we have a couple of elements we can share, and we are trying to build also in the project leader onboarding for large project, as well on the platform. We are trying to build some e-learning videos and maybe some tools and we can share, because here we want to share everything we do internally at Odoo with the partner in the community.
All right,
So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.